Do we have what we need? Let's talk about what you and I need, because I'll tell you, the world is very good at getting us to believe that we need things that we don't have, and then we go out and we spend time and we spend money and we spend energy getting things that we need when actually we don't really need them. And especially if we have God's help and God's support, so many times we can get along with so much less than we actually have. You know, the advertisers, for example, the advertisers in the world spend an immense amount of time and energy and thinking into how to make us uncomfortable, how to make us believe that we don't really have what we need, and we absolutely have to have their product, and we have to spend our money and our time to get what they have. But you know, the Bible has indications that really most of the time we can get along with a lot less than the world would tell us we need. And then I can tell you, it's a lot more comfortable to live life if you're not in debt, if you don't have a lot of credit card debt and that kind of thing. And we're just kind of getting along with a little less and getting along with ourselves, with our friends, with people we fellowship with, and with God. Absolutely. Now there's all kinds of indications of this in the Bible, but one of the best places that we can go in the Bible and find that we don't need more than we have is in the book of Judges. And, you know, it's kind of interesting. You could almost call the book of Judges the book of poor weapons because so many people in the book of Judges didn't have the kind of weapon, the kind of equipment that you would think they would need to get the job done. And yet, with God's help, they got the job done. Absolutely. You could also call perhaps the book of Judges the book of relying on God. Let's take a look at some of what happened in the book of Judges. We'll just do a quick overview to see what God did with the little that people had. And often it was the little that God wanted them to have so that they'd know they were relying on God. So we start out in Judges chapter 3, and if we read Judges 3:12 to 30, we read about a man named Ehud. And Ehud was a soldier from Israel at a time when Israel was being oppressed by the Moabites. And, you know, ordinarily, what would you think you need to get rid of an oppressing army? Well, you'd need another army. But God provided Ehud. And with just what you and I would consider to be a long dagger, Ehud got into the king of Moab, killed the king of Moab, and delivered the children of Israel and got away. All with himself and a dagger and relying on God. Did he need an army? No. Would it have been nice to have an army? Maybe. But he didn't have one. And what he had, God delivered him with. Then there was Shamgar. Shamgar lived at a time when the Philistines were encroaching upon Israel. In Judges chapter 3, verse 31 says, after Ehud, was Shamgar, the son of Anat, who struck down 600 men of the Philistines. Now, surely he had a machine gun or something, right? I mean, you're killing 600 guys, you've got to have like a machine gun or at least a semi-automatic weapon or maybe a couple big swords or something. It says he struck down 600 men of the Philistines with an ox goad. And he also saved Israel. He, along with Ehud and others, he also saved Israel. An ox goad. What's an ox goad? It's a pointed stick. So here's Ehud, Shamgar rather, and Shamgar's going into battle, and you know, you can imagine him thinking, I need a really good sword, I need a really good shield, I need a couple other guys to be with me. In fact, I need a small army of men to be with me. Instead, what's he got? He's got a pointed stick. And he trusts that, and he trusts God, and he gets deliverance for Israel. And then we go to Jael, or Yael, as her name would be in Hebrew. Yael, and Yael lived at a time when there was a war between the Canaanites and the Israelites. And Yael ended up being on the side of the Israelites. And through a set of circumstances, the Canaanite commander ended up being inside her tent. And you'd think, I mean, this guy I mean, he didn't get to be commander of the Canaanite forces for nothing. This is a strong man, a trained warrior. He's in her tent, and yet look at what she does. She waits till he's asleep. And then it says in Judges 4:21, then Yael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg and a hammer. She's got a tent peg and a hammer. Now you can roll over and wake up, see what's going on, and just kill her. She's got real guts here to do what she does. And what does, if she had a sword, it would be easier. See, she'd just walk in, and that'd be the end of it. But she doesn't have a sword. Somebody'd say, well, you need a sword. You can't move forward without a sword. Thankfully, Yael didn't feel that way. She had a tent peg and she had a hammer. Now, she was used to using those because in that time period, women were the ones who set up and took down the tents. That was part of what was considered to be their work. So she took a tent peg, took a hammer in her hand, went silently to him, to Sisera, drove the tent peg into his temple, and it went down into the ground. Now he'd been asleep and exhausted, so he died. So Yael, did she have the kind of weapon that you and I would think she would need? No, but she had a tent peg and a hammer, and she used that, and she accomplished deliverance for Israel. Then we run into Gideon. Now, Gideon is a person that really, really had to rely on God, because God tasked him with going up against an army of 135,000 Midianites. So, I mean, that's a sizable army by anybody's reckoning. 135,000 enemy soldiers. Well, what would Gideon need for that? What would Gideon need to do that job? Well, you'd think he'd need a really huge army. He'd need a really well-equipped army. What did he have? He had 600 men. And so he used strategy, he used wisdom, and he used God's help. And with 600 men and some jars and some torches and some trumpets, Gideon won that war. Again, what would he have needed versus what did he have? Gideon used what he had. And Samson, are you seeing a pattern here? We're kind of marching through the book of Judges, and nobody seems to have what they need, but everybody has God's help. And with God's help, they use what they do have, and it's enough. And that's so much the point in our life. And advertisers and others spend so much money trying to make us uncomfortable with what we have. And so many times we could follow the pattern in the book of Judges and just use what we have, and we would be fine. So here's Samson, and we know the story of Samson, the strong man, and he's going up against the Philistine army. And again, you'd think, okay, even as a strong man, you want a sword and a shield, right? I mean, you want some kind of effective weapon. But Samson didn't have that. Judges 15:15 says, and he, Samson, found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, and stretched out his hand and took it and struck down 1,000 men with it. So what did Samson have? He had a jawbone of a donkey. And he's looking at this army of 1,000 guys coming at him. And did he run? Did he flee? Did he say, oh, I don't have what I need to defeat these people? No, he found the jawbone of a donkey, and he killed 1,000 men. Now the pattern, what we're looking at in Judges is the pattern for you and me. Because the world is going to constantly tell us that we need things that we don't have. And then we have to we worry, we wish, we think about how wonderful things could be. And a lot of times we kind of leave God out of the picture. And we leave out of the picture that sometimes being debt-free or sometimes just simply living within your means and using what you have is really a peaceful, godly way to live. That many times we can make do, we can live, we can have a great life with the things that we have without having to buy in to, well, we need to get this and we need to get that. And God has shown us in books like the book of Judges that with His help, oftentimes what is around us and what we already have, that's enough. With God's help, that's enough. Thank you so much for watching, liking, and commenting on this video. And please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future content. And if you'd like to consider donating to help with making videos like this, please go to truthortradition.com/donate. God bless you.